All right, future managers, welcome to this explainer. We're going to bridge that crucial gap between academic management theory and real-world business application. Because if you're joining us for this Introduction to Management lecture, you already know that managing people isn't just about reading textbooks, right? It's about solving messy, complicated, thoroughly human problems. So today, we are going to learn exactly how to diagnose one of the most persistent diseases in literally any organization, communication breakdown.
Let's start with a guy named Dudley Haynes. Picture this. He's the president of a 30-store women's apparel chain, and he is just incredibly frustrated. The guy runs himself completely ragged, traveling to visit these stores 2 or 3 days a week, plus holding mandatory in-person meetings every 2 weeks. And the result? His policies are totally ignored, he's constantly having to rewrite ad copy himself, his store clerks are actively unionizing, and to top it all off, his absolute best talent is fleeing to his competitors. Now, Dudley thinks he knows what motivates people, money and a good boss. But as he finally admits to his daughter Joyce, his two really massive problems are communication and motivation.
To help fix this mess, here is our agenda for today. 1. The store manager's dilemma. 2. Root causes of problems. 3. The communication audit. 4. Managing through electronic media. And finally, 5. The future manager's toolkit.
Okay, let's jump right into Section 1, the store manager's dilemma.
We really have to look at the trap Dudley has fallen into here. He is literally trying to manage 30 spread-out stores exactly the same way his father did 50 years ago when it was just a single, standalone shop in Hartford, Connecticut. He's got his hands on every single detail. When Dudley looks at his company, what does he see? He sees a complete lack of drive and imagination in his staff. He sees policies being flat-out ignored. But as perceptive future managers, you've got to realize something absolutely crucial. These are not the core problems. These are merely the symptoms of a much deeper organizational disease.
And that brings us to our first major takeaway. As our textbook explicitly highlights, a perceptive manager doesn't just slap a Band-Aid on a symptom. They dig down to find the underlying causes of uncertainty and poor performance. Dudley rewriting the ad copy himself? That's just treating a symptom. He's totally missing the disease. To actually cure this, we need to know what causes communication to fail in the first place.
Which brings us to Section 2, Root Causes of Problems. To properly treat the disease, we've got to categorize the common causes of communication failures outlined in our source material. There are 11 major pitfalls, and honestly, they can happen anywhere, in the sender, during transmission, in the receiver, or within the feedback loop. The very first pitfall, it happens right at the start of the process, often before the receiver even hears a single word. If a message isn't planned out, or if it's poorly structured, well, the battle is already lost. We categorize these initial hurdles as message and meaning barriers. Think about semantic problems for a second. Words can mean entirely different things to different people. When Dudley stands up in his biweekly meetings and excitedly talks about increasing profit or retained earnings, that sounds fantastic to him. But to a store clerk working for hourly wages, increasing profit might just sound a lot like, "We're going to make you work twice as hard for the exact same pay." You add in unclarified assumptions and a message that's passed through a long, messy chain of command, and it completely explains why Dudley's managers are fundamentally misunderstanding his directives.
Now, the next set of barriers relates heavily to the human element and the actual environment where the message is delivered. Because, let's face it, even a perfectly crafted message is going to fail if the environment is toxic or the listener is completely tuned out.
Think about Dudley's top-down micromanaging approach. Status differences are a massive barrier here. A store clerk is absolutely not going to walk up to the president of the company and say, "Hey, your ad copy is terrible," right? They're intimidated. Furthermore, if there's an underlying climate of distrust or fear, any message coming down from headquarters is going to be viewed with total skepticism. Subordinates tighten up, they get defensive, and they distort the information they feed back up the chain. Dudley constantly complains that no one gives him good feedback, but his own intimidating, detail-obsessed management style is likely the exact thing preventing his staff from being honest with him in the first place.
All right, Section 3, the communication audit.
So, the million-dollar question is, now that we actually know the 11 causes of communication breakdown, how do we systematically diagnose them in a chaotic, unstructured environment like Haynes fashion stores? Enter the communication audit. This is a vital diagnostic tool. An audit uses observations, questionnaires, interviews, and document analysis to map out exactly how information flows, or completely fails to flow, within an organization. The beauty of it is that it doesn't just fix current problems, it actively prevents future ones.
A proper audit looks at 4 very distinct communication networks. First, the regulative network, which handles the rules and policies. Next, the innovative network, which takes care of problem solving and suggestions. Then you have the integrative network. This one is all about motivation, praise, and linking company goals to personal needs. And finally, the informative network is basically your general broadcast of company news. By breaking communication down like this, a manager can pinpoint the exact point of failure. I bet you anything Dudley's regulative network is overloaded. He's always barking rules. But his integrative network, the one that provides praise and links company goals to his employees' personal needs, yeah, that one is completely broken. That's exactly why they're unionizing and leaving.
Moving on to Section 4, Managing through Electronic Media.
Once that audit is complete, managers have to actually take action. Dudley is completely exhausting himself, traveling to 30 stores every single week just to micromanage. He desperately needs to upgrade his tools from that inefficient, constant travel to modern electronic media. Historically, information in a company was heavily controlled by a central mainframe, which gave middle management a super tight grip on communications. But the advent of personal computers totally decentralized that information, entirely changing how organizations operate. It stepped up information dynamics by putting power directly onto the desks of the employees themselves.
But here's the catch. Initially, PC users were pretty isolated, and that is where modern software steps in. Instead of just using computers to manage spreadsheets and isolated data, we now use software capabilities known as groupware. Groupware is specifically designed to manage continuous, dynamic networks of relationships between people.
As a manager, it is absolutely vital to choose the right electronic tool for the job. You really have to understand the difference between a private channel and a collaborative one.
Think of it this way. Email is fantastic for a private, one-on-one conversation between specific correspondents. But groupware, that serves as a dynamic bulletin board and conference space. For a company like Hanes, with 30 scattered stores, groupware could be an absolute game changer. Instead of waiting for Dudley's bi-weekly visit just to share a good idea, a store manager in Hartford could use groupware to instantly share a successful sales strategy with a manager in Boston. It builds an incredibly strong, innovative network, and it completely removes Dudley as the middleman.
And finally, there's teleconferencing. This tool gives you instantaneous, interactive audio and visual feedback. Just think about the massive amounts of travel time and expense Dudley is wasting by driving across New England every week. Teleconferencing allows executives to hold frequent, highly interactive meetings without any of the physical movement. It radically improves communication between headquarters and scattered branches, because meetings can happen the exact moment they're needed, rather than waiting for some rigid 2-week schedule.
And finally, Section 5, the Future Manager's Toolkit.
So, what should you really take away from all this? Let's bring all this management theory back down to earth and directly apply it to our original case study so you can outfit your own Future Manager's Toolkit. Whenever you face a failing team, follow this 3-step diagnostic procedure. First, look right past the obvious symptoms, like those ignored policies, and identify the root causes. Are they semantic barriers, status differences, poor listening? Figure it out. Second, conduct a 4-part communication audit to see exactly which specific networks are breaking down. And third, deploy the right electronic media, like groupware or teleconferencing, to decentralize information and build a climate of trust and continuous collaboration. These are the tangible, real-world steps you absolutely must take to ensure your employees are both understood and highly motivated.
I'm going to leave you with this final challenge, because understanding these concepts isn't just about passing your Introduction to Management exam, it's about becoming a truly perceptive leader in the real world. If you were Joyce Haynes, stepping into your father's office tomorrow morning, how exactly would you tell him to let go of the past, audit his failing networks, and implement these new tools to save his life's work? Think about it. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time as we continue to decode the art of management.